So I'm sitting here with Jerome. He's been gracious to sit down. It's 6 o'clock, just past six on Friday, February 24th. And Jerome has been was an integral part of Scholar's Edge when we launched in BC, was with us for 4 years, 2 years as an operator in Victoria. And I think if I remember correctly, Jerome, you ran over 175,000 worth of sales, and then was promoted to being a district manager, which you oversaw more than $1 million in revenue. And I look back on the experience and working with you, and I'm super grateful. We became great friends over those 4 years. And now, if I'm not mistaken, you're working, you're an analyst with the Bank of Canada. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my official job title is research assistant, but that is basically the job title they give anyone who has an undergrad but not a master's degree. So I think analyst is probably a more apt based on the work I actually do.
Okay.
I don't think anyone would see the work I do and call me a research assistant necessarily. Analyst is probably more accurate.
So you graduated from UVic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could maybe share with everybody what did you graduate with? What was your major?
Yeah, so I majored in economics. I have a honors degree, Bachelor of Arts. And then if anyone cares, I did a minor in applied ethics with a business focus. So I graduated in 2020. So I was the class with no graduation.
Yeah, with all COVID and everything. Yeah. So now you're living in Vancouver.
Yep.
And and what do you do on a day in day out basis with your career right now?
So there's it varies. It really depends. So my team, I'll try not to get into too many details, but my team does a thing called a business outlook survey. So if you look up the Bank of Canada business outlook survey, you'll find we produce these quarterly reports where we interview businesses, which has been really cool with the experience I've had, because I've got to interview like CEOs and CFOs of some of the biggest companies in Canada. So once a quarter, sorry if that's coming through. Once a quarter, we interview a bunch of companies, and then we analyze all that data. And so that takes about a third of my time. The rest of my time is about another third is working on my own projects. So if you look, it should be published by the end of February, maybe early March. If you look up the Bank of Canada Stringency Index, that's what I've been spending a lot of time on. Basically measuring how strict COVID restrictions are across the country. And the other third of my time is more the actual research assistant, where I help out the senior economists and directors with whatever the heck they need help with.
Okay. Yeah. So let's go back to your Scholar's Edge days. Do you remember getting hired, starting your business, being at training, the first door you knocked on, the first job you booked? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, no, I although some of it's foggy, I do remember a lot of it well. I remember you actually you interviewed me, and I just remember being really excited because when I started university, I was a bit of a lost soul, I'd say, but I knew I wanted to be involved in business. Like I had aspirations of kind of running my own company. And then I had this cool opportunity to do that thing, right? It seemed really exciting to me. I had tangentially known people that had been in the industry who had a lot of good things to say about it, so I was really excited. I do remember training well. It was I don't know if you're still holding them in Victoria, but it was held in Victoria. It was only a couple blocks from my house. No, that's not true. Sorry.
You were in Calgary.
Right. No. I'm thinking of the second training. Yeah, first training was in Calgary, and so we got flown out to Calgary, which was awesome. Just felt cool to be like out in a new city doing this training. And then, you know what? It's funny. I don't remember like necessarily the first door I knocked on, but I do remember the first job I booked, and it was like this $1,000 window trim job, and she booked on the spot, and it was. I remember thinking like, all right, here we go. Like it was awesome, and yeah, it's funny actually. We were going for a walk the other day, and it was kind of nice, and we were walking around some houses, and I almost like thought about calling you up to go cold calling because it was like I was walking around houses in springtime. Like that's what that was my life for 4 years. So
Hmm. So now when you look back at your experience, can you think of like what would you say are like some of your most positive memories, as well maybe some memorable challenges that you had to go through in running your business? And we can talk about the memorable challenges as well in terms of growth opportunities. Are there anything is there anything that jumps out at you?
Yeah, so I think my most positive memory was actually my second year. Um, and I think you probably actually have the picture still in the client manual potentially. It was a job that we did. It was almost a $6,000 job that I booked on the spot, and it was we repainted their whole house. It used to be green. It was faded. Did this nice gray blue door, and like the customers just loved it. And I would see them sometimes later just around town, or I booked a lot of work in that neighborhood, so I'd be around the neighborhood, and they were always like so happy and so excited, and to like have felt like I did a really, really good job. Like that was probably the best job I ever did,
Mhm.
and so I think about them a lot actually. That's one. Yeah, a lot of my best memories are associated with like really happy customers. In the second summer and the in the Mexico trip, like I had a really happy client while we were in Mexico. He was like super stoked with the work we did, and so got to feel really cool while also, sipping beers on the beach in Mexico with you guys, right? So it was so there's that. I had some friends working with me, and friends I had made that worked with me, and like I have a lot of fond memories of like just funny things that happen. Nothing like really worth noting, but just the fun little things that happen on job sites. Like there's a bunch of little memories like that. Like there was just one time it was really hot, and like we all suffered because of it, but we got to kind of joke around, hide in the under the deck for a little while, and just stuff like that. Yeah. So those are a lot of the positive memories. Some of the challenges are definitely the opposite of the happy memories, where the job didn't go so well. And that happens, right? That happens in every like I talked about earlier. I do these interviews, happens to everyone. And the first big job I think of was one that stretched on for a few weeks and wasn't very profitable, but the client wasn't like mad. She was a bit of a perfectionist, and I learned a lot about that job. I learned a lot about setting expectations, because I think, not that we did a bad job, but I think I had her set for like a 12 out of 10, where we probably delivered her like an 8 or 9. We still did a great job. There's a couple, things we could have done better, I'm sure, but like her expectations were way too high. And then because it kind of kept dragging out, it gave her more time to look at things. So I learned a lot from that job on how to like communicate with clients, both before you book the job and while the job is happening, and kind of like how to like finish the job when it's done. And then but that woman still, like, she was still happy with the work. This is another customer I'd see around, and she was like always happy to see me. She still recommended us to her neighbors, and then I booked like another 10 grand around that neighborhood. So it's like, it didn't, it wasn't the hell job or anything like that, but like that was a big challenge. And I think that has also carried through outside of Scholar's Edge, where, you know, um, trying my best to set expectations with people and try to communicate better and things of that nature.
I agree. I sit back and I obviously have tons of good memories. Every once in a while they come to me, but I can't sit here and I can tell you that when I actually ran my business a long time ago, that like in Nanaimo, I just remember like the challenging times were what I learned the most from.
Oh, definitely.
And
So you can have those good memories, right?
right now, do you feel like Scholar's Edge? I mean, here you're in this new position, you've moved on. Is there, has Scholar's Edge, can you look at the experience of Scholar's Edge and look in the mirror and say, hey, Scholar's Edge has helped me with respect to what I'm doing now, not only in terms of getting hired, but being in that position that you're in now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so on the getting hired side, I think it helped, right? You might not think that like running a painting business is necessarily like how you get into working for, a public. I'm sorry, this is my cat. She is a little not how you think you necessarily get into like working for, like a public policy branch like I do, right? But I think one thing that my time with Scholar's Edge did is it gives you this, if you really buy in and you do your best, and I think you'll find a level of success, and then it makes you realize that like I can do anything, right? There's no, I mean, anything within like physical possibility I can do, right? And so I know some of my peers like at school thought, they would kind of aim for what are, in my opinion, maybe low hanging fruit type work after they graduated. And I was like, no, like yeah, I, I can do one of the best jobs that is available for someone with my degree, right? Which, in my opinion, this is one of the best jobs if you have an undergrad in econ, like to get right when you graduate. And so I think that confidence like helped me prepare, because I knew I needed to like get an honors degree and write a thesis. I knew, but I think it also carried through in the interview process, right? Because these big organizations have these kind of thorough interview process, and I think it helps when you're a resume in a stack of resumes. It helps you stand out, right? Because I was someone, and I think in their eyes, that had experience that was unique and different and valuable, right? I could bring a perspective, and I could bring a a life experience that like not every research assistant at the Bank of Canada can bring. Because like most of my peers, like, well, a lot of them have done really cool stuff, like a lot of my coworkers, but none of them have done anything like what I've done. They did like really cool co-ops at really cool, like hedge funds or like or whatever, did like a lot of them did really cool stuff, and I think that helped them. This helped me. In terms of what I actually do, on one hand, it's a bit unique on how it helps me, but I also think it's not as unique as I think. Like I said, we interview businesses every quarter. So I've been here for 3 quarters now. So I've got like 30, 40 interviews in the tank, and it's helped me understand their perspective, right? When we ask them about their wages, we ask them about their input costs, about their sales, like you learn that stuff in school, and like that part is important, but it's also important to like live it and really understand it, right? When I talk to them about like their labor shortages, I really can understand that, because that was a big struggle. That was one of the biggest struggles that I dealt with, was finding painters, right? So I can really help understand them better. And while that's partially unique to me, I think that most of no matter what you do, you're going to be interacting with other people in other businesses, right? And to have a better like perspective and understanding, it's going to just help. You're going to be able to deal with people better. You can build better relationships, right? Like if you're not running a business after this, like, and you need to have relationships and work, right? And having a better understanding of what it's like to be a business owner helps you have better relationships with other business owners. And I think if I had chosen to be more entrepreneurial, like I know someone who's thinking of maybe starting a business, and like my input's been like really valuable to that. So yeah, I think it's been great.
What would you say, like, think of your top three takeaways, like from your experience at Scholar's Edge?
Top three?
And these could be things that takeaways in terms of, like, I know there's probably a lot, but I'm trying to narrow it down. Like, things that you learn are just the qualities that are so important to success, almost through, yeah, like, I think everyone at Scholar's Edge, you get kind of beaten up a little bit when through learning experiences, or you have a skill, an innate skill in the first place that you realize helps you produce results. What would be three things that come to mind?
Yeah. Okay. So I think, like I said earlier, like communication, right? I'll never be perfect at it, and neither will anyone, but I learned how important it is to communicate clearly. And when it's important to be maybe a little more assertive, a little friendlier, a little more reserved. It just really depends on the situation. But knowing that, like, I tell people, it's like with one of the things I learned painting is that there's no such thing as gray, right? Like I learned that, and anytime a client thought like gray, like there's usually like a tinge of blue or purple or gray brown or green or whatever. And you can kind of like use that as a metaphor for anything else. If I say like, oh, things are good with me, like what does that mean? Like that doesn't really necessarily mean anything. And so when you're doing things that are like in business that are important, you need to be clear, and you need to make sure that you understand as well. That's the other part of communication. It's not just the talking, it's the listening part, right? So just communication in general is super important. And the other big takeaway, again, I kind of said this earlier, but that like is that how would I put this? Like, I think a lot of people were told as a kid, like, oh, you could do anything you want. You can be anything you want to be, right? Sky's the limit, do what you want. And then I think we sometimes just get a little jaded in life, as like a lot of people maybe, like, you get bullied in school, or, like you get a bad grade on a test and you're like, oh, maybe I can't do this, I can't do that. And like, I had a working class life. I never even thought that I'd be, do anything like run a business. That's something that business people do. I can't do that, right? But then I learned that, like, no, that's not true. You can, really gave me the perspective to realize that I could do anything I wanted, right? Again, within physical limitation. And I think that's super valuable because it helps. It doesn't give you a limit in life, right? It's not like I haven't peaked yet. I don't think I'll ever peak. I want to just keep improving and getting better, right? And so, although I had heard that and maybe thought it, I didn't believe it like I do now. And then number three, I think is just the importance of like it's kind of a hard one to put into words, but like I said earlier, like I learned a lot of things in school which are really important, still are really important, and you need to have that book learning. It is an important aspect, but also like experiencing it, right? Like, so when that was part of the reason why I took this job. I wasn't sure, like I was really excited to do it, but I wasn't sure, like, do I want to like be work for a public type like a public policy organization, or do I want to do something else? It's something I thought I wanted to do, but I knew I had to like experience it, right? So because running a business, I thought I knew what it was like, right? It wasn't. It was still great. I'm not saying it was bad, but like, it was, you got to experience it. So that was a huge takeaway, is like and then like a tangent to that is like all of the like just having those experiences is an important takeaway on its own, right?
Now, every year we recruit new students to take on the challenge and go through the journey that you did to be able to tell the story. What would you say to a future applicant? What would be the reason that you give them that, you should do this and this is why? And if they are starting out, what advice would you give them? Here they are sitting at training.
Yeah. I mean, why should you do it? I think it's a great opportunity to, especially if you're someone who's like interested in business, right? Like, unless you're gonna be a super go-getter and go run out and start your own business, like while you're in school, which I guess in theory you could do, but like, it's an opportunity to like get your feet wet, if you will, really experience it, like I said, but there's like a bit of a safety net, right? Because you've already got the systems in place, you know what you're doing. I think Scholar's Edge knows what they're doing, and so like you can get that mentorship, that so you don't just have to dive into the deep end, right? You can dip your toes, so to speak. Although that's going to contradict with what I'm about to say. Whereas my advice is that don't just dip your toes, right? Like you need to commit. When I saw people who didn't have the success that they wanted, it was usually people who like found excuses to not do things and just didn't really commit to the like what you need to do to be a good operator, right? Like that, and there's two reasons for that. Like time flies, right? Like it feels like just the other day when I started with Scholar's Edge, and like I already was with you guys for 4 years and then now a year and a half removed, right? But so you're sitting there thinking, well, yeah, whatever, I'll hang out and I'll play video games and hang out with my friends tonight, and then I'll go cold calling tomorrow. But then you do that again, and suddenly it's June and you haven't booked any work, right? Or, like that can happen with any stage of the process, right? And so you have to commit, you have to be all in, and you have to like be ready to work hard, right? Like don't expect there are I don't want this to seem like, it's like don't sleep and, work 24/7, blah, blah, blah. But you gotta make sure that like you gotta follow the Scholar's Edge system, right? You've signed up for this for a reason. So like follow, follow the system. And, trust in your district manager, trust in the system. And the other thing I would say is make sure you hire a lot of people. That was the thing that probably burned me the most. Hire early and hire excessively, because he'll thank me. It's just like, it's hard to explain until you've felt real labor shortages, but it's way better to have more people sooner than not enough people later. So that's the like really practical advice I have.
So, well, we'll leave it at that, Jerome. I really, really do appreciate you sharing your wisdom and advice and experiences. And I know that this sort of look back video will be a huge benefit to other operators. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.